This Todd-versation is brought to you in part by Produce Careers with promotional consideration from Calavo Growers and Volcano Produce.
Hey, everybody. How the hell are you today? Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm doing well myself. My guests are doing well. They told me so before we got rolling here today. We're thrilled to have you join us today on Todd-versations. Welcome to 2023. We're glad you made it through the holidays. We hope it was prosperous and fun and everybody got good gifts. No coal. You're not supposed to get coal anymore. It's bad. But nonetheless, I hope everybody had a good time and everybody's smiling and feeling good. I got a couple of buddy of mine here today to hang out with me to talk about a subject I think is going to be really important and is certainly at the forefront of a lot of conversations in this country right now: hiring, job, looking, seeking, the whole 9 yards. I think it's going to be a really fun conversation. So please give it up for the big brains, the two big brains at Produce Careers. Please welcome DJ and Nathan Stornetta, my brothers from another mother. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks, Todd.
That's it. I get a thanks, Todd. No other fucking nothing. I give you that big of a fucking intro and you guys dead fish me. Come on.
It's good to be.
Oh man,
Happy to be here. Yeah.
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Indianapolis. Here, yeah, it's gorgeous.
I love it. I appreciate both of you being here tremendously. You guys, I'm just such big fans of your family and what you all do. And I've learned so much from being around you and your counsel and thinking about things differently from the perspective that you bring, which is hiring. Look, hiring, firing, finding, seeking, looking. Where's my future going to be as an employee and an employer? It's just a really, really interesting conversation. Of course, the last couple of years have made it really interesting conversation. So I'm looking forward to diving into a whole bunch of stuff. I got a gazillion questions for you guys to kind of talk about this topic, what it's going to be and what it's going to look like. So I'm going to pick your big brains for the next little bit and see what we can learn. It's really a contest. See which one of you two is smarter. Actually, that's really the way I set this up. So good luck to you both on that. But before I get started, like I do with every one of my guests, and you guys can arm wrestle for this or what you want to do, just give everybody a quick little hey, hi, ho, and give everybody a little introduction and bio and a little history of who you are and how the hell I roped you into hanging out with me for an hour today.
We'll let the firstborn go first.
All right, DJ, lay it on us.
Well, first of all, Todd, thanks for having us on. It's been awesome watching you grow your podcast and having the guests on that you do. I've listened to a few of your shows. Yeah, they are super cool. From the gentleman you had on recently in Minnesota talking about the benefits of what they're doing with the cafeteria food and how it's impacting the students, the parents. That's terrific. I really enjoyed the lady you had on in San Joaquin Valley regarding our water situation here in California, which I think the produce industry needs to really address a lot more than it has.
100% agree with that. Lois Henry's doing a big lift right now in this valley and for the state about water. She's looking at things and with really wide eyes and talking about things nobody wants to talk about. And I'm proud of her for it. It's a great organization.
Not to get off topic, but it really flummoxes me that the industry, at least broadly, hasn't really talked about it. And as the largest produce state, you think that we would have a little bit more conversation about it and maybe some action as well. Here's my bio.
Go.
I was actually in the produce industry once upon a time. Back in the mid 90s, I started with a small apple grower, packer, shipper in Bakersfield, actually DeGiorgio of all places.
Yeah.
And from there, I became a sales coordinator at Diorigo and Salinas, and a junior salesperson with Boscovich Farms when they had a Salinas office, and did that for about 4 years or so. Then I tapped out. Totally shifted gears, moved to Los Angeles, and where we stayed there for about 10 years. Got into the media side of advertising, working with a media agency there on planning and buying advertising for .coms, Jack in the Box, and Adidas. Moved over to the sales side in Spanish television and sold for Univision and for Telemundo to agencies in the Los Angeles area. And I know when I tell people that I've worked for those places, they think, hey, you speak Spanish, and go, well, not really. I was calling out ad agencies, but I do speak advertising.
Well, that's good.
And we just got to a point after having our third child, and we were done with Los Angeles and had the opportunity to join the family company, relocate back to the Central Coast where we were raised. And that was about 10, 12 years ago. And here we are.
I love it. I love it. How about you, my favorite Boilermaker?
Boiler up, baby.
Boiler up, baby. Got to just comment on the drum in the background. I love it.
I moved out to Indiana and haven't come back to good old Cali. But hey, first exposure to the produce industry back in 1993. That's the era when Dave Stornetta was the GM COO at Apio, right?
Yeah.
In Guadalupe, California, and felt very lucky to have that opportunity to, spend some time back in the carton yard with the mechanics and the maintenance crew. Brushed up on my Spanish, if you will, some really good lingo.
So basically you can order food and cuss. That's what I'm guessing.
Kind of how it works.
Kind of.
So no, but simultaneously grew up with some really good people in Santa Maria that to this day, so I'm in my mid 40s, and that's a big rewarding part of what we do now at Produce Careers is to interface with people that I grew up with.
Yeah.
People like Danny Gresser with Central West. He and I were in the golf team together at St. Joseph's High School in Santa Maria. Chad Ineo, I think, is the GM with Greenheart Farms in Arroyo Grande. There's multiple people. Joe Ferrari is the VP of Farming with Dole up in Salinas. And just as far as people in the industry, the former Apio folks that we cross paths with, guys like Steve Adlish and, there's this many Sandy Cleary, the list goes on and on. So I was very fortunate to have that experience growing up in high school and being exposed to agriculture as a kid. Our dad grew up on a dairy in NorCal. Yeah. And kind of that's ingrained as to who we are and what we do, and was fortunate enough to go to Purdue for agribusiness. And, I started out in the corporate world with ConAgra Foods, doing retail sales with their meat division, Armour Swift Eckrich, and then transitioned to sales in the manufacturing sector here in the Midwest, which was a blast. But it was kind of a simultaneous deal when Dave started Produce Careers, which was 2000. I had 5 years under my belt, being 05. And we talked shop about his firm growing, the opportunities to work together. And, I'll never forget that conversation with my wife saying, Carla, I think we should try this. There's no downside to trying this. What's it going to hurt? So here we are, going on 18, 19 years. It's been a true blessing to not only partner with my father, and then obviously DJ came up to the Central Coast 10, 12 years ago. It's been a blast, man. It's a wonderful industry. Folks like you, Todd, that's what keeps the globe spinning, man. There's a lot of things.
Probably don't spin a lot of globes, I'm guessing. No. Well, I appreciate that, though. No, you said something that's really impactful, and I'm going to get around to, because I'm going to talk specifically about Pops a little bit. Your old man is something, and I've got some questions built in there. We're going to talk about Dave a little bit, because his influence, not only on you two, is something, but his influence overall in the business is pretty tremendous as well. He's a hell of a character, and I can't wait to throw those at you. But before we get into that, because we're sitting here talking about Produce Careers and what you all are about, and these relationships you built, and the value of that, which I think is absolutely pivotal. It's what this industry is almost in some ways is so fraternal that it just, people are just so connected in one way or another, and that connection continues throughout whatever their tenure is, wherever they go. It's just amazing. Tell everybody a little bit about, and you guys fight for this, and we'll keep score who's winning, but tell everybody what Produce Careers is, if you wouldn't mind. Give them a little frame up.
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now, a word from our sponsor. At Produce Careers, we are in the people business. Thanks for listening to Todd-versations. As your trusted executive search firm for the fresh produce, food processing, and agribusiness industries, we focus on outcomes. With over 80 years of combined industry expertise, with our global networks, we have the tools and the skills to identify top talent for your organization's strategic hiring needs. Our relationship-driven approach and proven recruitment process deliver the right candidates at the right time. At Produce Careers, we know each hire is an investment. Whether you're looking for the perfect candidate or searching for your next challenge, call or email us today and let us partner with you.
At the end of the day, recruiting, Todd, it's not rocket science per se, right? I mean, everyone has their own profession. You have to roll up your sleeves in the morning, and you have to win. You have to win. But at the end of the day, with us, or with our values, with honesty, fairness, and respect. That's how we treat our people internally at shows, interfacing on a daily basis. So in the capacity and context of matchmaking, we take it very seriously. We're dealing with high executives that are trying to grow their business and land talent. Simultaneously, we're dealing with candidates that are looking to improve their career paths, their livelihood for themselves and their families. And it's a big deal, right? It's very competitive out there. Our commodity is human beings. It's not a box of broccoli. It has its own nuances, its challenges. But fortunately, we've had many, many wins, and that is transparent when we go to the shows and people come up to us on the aisle or the booth saying, "Thank you, here's what's going on," or whether it's going to a seminar to learn what's going on in the industry and crossing paths with those folks. So, it's serious business because we are truly impacting people's lives.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I mean, you're 100% are. I mean, these are people making life choices, making big changes, family changes. We've got family at home, kids, the wife, all this. It's a lot going into, taking a leap of faith through employment or making changes, trying to grow. It's not for the faint of heart. There's plenty of people that just punch in, punch out every day in the same job for their entire career because that's just what is comfortable or whatever. But people need to grow, and produce is certainly a business that allows that to happen. So when you think about recruiting, I want to drill it down just to another level. Can you tell me a little bit about, do you have a specialty in what you guys work in? What is it? And then why did you guys decide to focus on that area of concentration? Fight for it, Deej.
Well, I like to call us a fruit and vegetable firm, if you will, because we, are started in the produce business,
Right.
And I'm sure Nathan can go into greater detail on that. But that's where our father, Dave Sr., he started the business in the produce business because he came out of Appio, and that's where we specialize in. But the reason I mentioned fruit and vegetable firm is because we work with companies throughout the whole life cycle of fruits and vegetables. That includes seed companies, crop input, crop chemical, ag tech, farming organizations, the grower, packer, shippers, fresh cut processors, importers, wholesalers, and some retailers as well. And there's probably a few categories that I might be forgetting about. We also get into the food processing side, largely again within fruit and vegetables. We work with some big brands in that space as well.
Right.
So that's kind of our wheelhouse in terms of our industry. It's very focused within, that area. But within it, we work on all job functions within mid to executive level.
Right.
So that includes finance, sales, supply chain, procurement, R&D, farming and farm supervisors. We can go on to list job titles.
Right.
But when it comes to a produce company, we'll find the top people for you.
I love that. So we brought up Dave a couple of times, AKA Pops. Literally an amazing human being and so much fun to be around. Always a wealth of knowledge and just, I don't know. I've never been around your old man and not walked away like, okay, that was a great talk, or I got inspired, or he poked me some way that made me smarter and think differently and all that. I just love it. So I want to get into Dave a little bit because I want to, and it's my fucking show and I can do what I want. So let's start with that. And the first question I want to ask about that is, because you brought it up, how important are family values to each of you? How much does that really matter in how you think and what you go about in your everyday? Deej.
Well,
Nathan,
crucial.
you go first. You go. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Nathan, go ahead.
No, Deej, you're rolling. Deej, go.
All
Nathan's
right.
still thinking. We're hurting him.
Well, it's our identity. As Dave will say, it's the founder's mentality, which I think is something he's worked with his clients on. And Nathan highlighted the values earlier: honesty, fairness, and respect. But the family piece is our culture too. We'll probably talk about culture. What does that mean later? But it's how we act and behave around one another, how we treat each other, our employees, our team members. I don't think of our people as employees. I think this is who we work with. This is our group, right?
Yeah.
Kind of our pride, if you will. And we try to then roll that out to the customers and the candidates with whom we work too. And I think it also is evident in our ethics and our character when we recruit, because that's crucial when talking to people. They have to trust us. They have to have confidence, and that will honor what they say is confidential on both sides. I don't know if this is an apt comparison, but I like to say we're a bit like the clergy. People can come to us and share what they want, and it's our job to listen. And if there's times to share it, to help them either hire somebody or get themselves hired, wonderful. If there's tons of times when people call us and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking off the record. Right. And we honor that because that's what we do and that's who we are.
Yes, but it certainly is a big part. I mean, that's that confidence that you give to people in that respect is incredibly important. Nate, I'm going to kind of throw the same question at you, but I mean, in the light of I guess, does family values influencing produce careers and how you interact with folk? I'm curious to hear what you think about that too.
Yeah, well, Todd, everything starts with the foundation.
100%.
So our foundation, again, is honesty, fairness, and respect. And we have to carry that out every single day. Okay. Like DJ mentioned, we don't perceive our quote unquote employees as employees. No, I mean, they're family members. You look at our staff and they are long tenured, and that's a win. Hey, hiring talent is competitive, and we're fortunate to have retained our people, right? And they are experts now. They get the first call with some of their clients versus DJ and I. So I think that portrays that, our value system does work. Furthermore, as a quote unquote headhunter, we're not hiding out behind a laptop and a phone. We're going to the shows and interfacing with people. And hey, we're on the sidelines watching people, but simultaneously they're watching us. And there's more competitors in our sandbox now versus say 10 years ago. Naturally, the food and fresh produce industry is very attractive. It's sustainable, right? Who knows what is going to happen in 2023 with the economy, but people are going to continue to farm, ship, process, and get food to families, right? All throughout so we don't take this lightly. We don't feel entitled by any stretch. We have to earn it. We want to earn people's trust and respect. And it's very rewarding when people do confide their career outlook. I love that, and simultaneously, we appreciate the calls from owners of companies that say, here's what I'm thinking, but no one can really know about this, right? That's tough. And that can be a dicey, that's tough, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we have to block and tackle and get people in front of our clients, but you have to stick to your values. Just be transparent with people, right? Just treat them right. It goes both ways. And you don't take that for granted by any capacity. We truly enjoy this industry. We're passionate about it. And we want everyone to win collectively. So again, you have your foundation to win.
I love that. No, I love that perspective too. And I'm a big believer in foundation. I say it all the time. If the base of the ladder is strong, you can take some wobbling as you climb. But if that base is weak, no matter what you're trying to do, you always have that fear of something breaking below you. And I think it's incredibly important that hiring, recruiting, finding people is basically that. It's about building people, putting people into that foundational place that helps build companies that rise, right? And so your work is incredibly important because you are kind of judge and jury in a lot of ways when it comes to, is this the right fit, personality-wise, culturally-wise? Is this going to work? I mean, it's a big lift. It's not as easy as going on some, digital platform and, go, oh, I love this resume. God, it's so much more than that. And I want to get into that a little bit too as well. But before I do that, because we got on the train and we're talking about family values, I'm going to stick to my thought because, again, talking about Pops a little bit. He's out there. He's a legend. If you don't know him, you get to a produce show, you have an opportunity to shake his hand and meet him. You'll be a better person for it, guaranteed. But talk to me a little bit about, if you wouldn't, and you guys can go, it doesn't matter who's first, but talk to a little bit about how he's influenced you coming into this, right? Because you both walked into this kind of eyes open. Here we are. Dad's like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You want to get on board? Talk a little bit of how he's influenced you. And I'd also like to, I'll throw a two-part out, can maybe tie it in together, whatever, but what's the best advice he's ever given you too?
Yeah,
You can go with any one of them. You can, I don't care. One pick one pick another. I don't give a shit. Just play with it.
Yeah. First off with Dad, it's kind of funny. His temperament, I compare him to, he's more of an Old Testament guy than a New Testament guy, meaning if you just do the right thing, good things will happen.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic. And obviously, as kids of Dave's, we've had our mistakes over the years. And with that being said, he's always said, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah.
And I don't care if that's with school, a sport, a hobby, or a career, or whatever, a relationship. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So I think about that pretty frequently, Todd. I really do. Think about it, our line of work is challenging. There's days like, God darn, what are we doing here? But if you do what's right and keep hammering away, right? Being persistent and consistent. That's another motto he has, being persistent and consistent. And we shower with snowflakes. Hey, good things are going to happen.
I love that. Yeah, I love it. How about you, Deej?
Growing up with Dave Sr., there's different eras of anecdotes and platitudes that he's sprinkled throughout our lives, right?
Yeah.
And I'll go back to some of the old days, but there was a consultant he worked with. I'm going to paraphrase. He said something to the effect of, God didn't put our eyes in the back of the head to see what's behind us.
Right.
Put the eyes in front of us to see what's ahead of us. So don't worry so much about what's behind. I mean, we could go on and on with these sorts of things.
Oh yeah.
But there's one thing that myself, Nathan, and our sister got exposed to that is generational, that you don't see really anymore. I think except within farming and agribusiness, produce, I think it's still here. But before the produce business, he was in the liquid feed business for a company called Lumix, and they would have these events, bring in people from various spots, and they have a nice, after all the meetings, they'd have a big party, and the kids could be a part of this too. So it was very family oriented, and that's the owners, Rich Loomis, amazing human being. And so as a result, as kids, we got to go to these ultimately business functions. Now, of course, in the 70s and 80s, they were pretty fun. I would, at least as a kid running around.
Good looking suits in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, this was cowboy boots and cowboy hat sort of crowd. But in those environments, we were taught, hey, you're going to be coming. So you need to shake someone's hand, look them in the eye, and introduce yourself and say, nice to meet you. So as kids, we were brought up with this.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe that's what makes recruiting a little bit easier on our side, talking to people. Nathan's great at trade shows. And I think a lot of this is because of how we were raised. So it may not be a certain analogy, but it's an experience that we had growing up that, boy, I wish more kids, had that opportunity to experience that throughout their lives.
Boy, I'll tell you what, I guarantee you there's a lot of what you just said not happening today in this fine country of ours.
No,
it's more like, hey, shoot them a text.
And when I was in the media business, if a spouse was invited to a function, that was a big deal. So culturally, certain industries, certain areas are very different than agribusiness, and we were very blessed to be brought up that way.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. Thanks for sharing a little bit of that. Dave will appreciate that. You all said nice things. I'm sure that'll be good. If it was bad, he would call me and say, hey, why'd you print that? Why'd you let that go? No, I'm teasing. Let's get into it a little bit, guys, because the last 3 years have been crazy. Hiring's going nuts. People aren't working anymore because it's easier not to work, apparently. And there's all kinds of crap going on in this world. I want to talk about it. I want to get deep into the weeds about it if we can. So first thing I want to talk about, let's just chat a little bit about the last 3 years, right? Obviously, there was this thing called COVID. I don't know if you've heard of it. COVID happened. A lot of people got sick. Not a good thing. A lot going on around that. But that had to be incredibly weird for you guys to deal with in the recruiting, job hiring business. Is there something you want to kind of throw at what it taught you? Maybe a little bit of something around like, yeah, the last 3 years were just goofy or whatever, just from some perspective.
Yeah, I think again, Produce Careers is a smaller company, right? But we were very empathetic with the bigger companies, and you're hearing about these stories of companies, were shutting down the office, people are working from home, and great, it was a unified approach, right,
Yeah.
to deal with COVID. But simultaneously, the fresh produce industry doesn't stop. It's very demanding, and how do we get through these hurdles, these challenges?
Right.
So I would say for the companies that were, pretty open-minded or have the resources to enable their people to work from home, survive that storm. Others probably had some challenges with that. How does that correlate to the candidate's mindset for recruitment during that? I mean, it was tricky. It really was.
Yeah, it had to be.
I mean, it got to the point, and it's a legal question, but as far as a screening question, we had to ask candidates, hey, if our client is requiring that you're vaccinated, are you?
Right. Yeah.
And we had to ask that because we placed a few people that showed up on the job, and within the first couple of weeks, guess what? The boss came and said, hey, Charlie, are you vaccinated? No. Well, you have to be. And we had a few candidates that flat out just walked.
Wow.
No thanks. So that was tough. Candidates, if they could work from home, salespeople, right? If they have the infrastructure and the system to just like go, great. But it was random. We had food safety people asking if they could work from home.
Yeah. Well, huh? Are you serious?
And like,
wow.
No, yeah. Like, I don't know how you're going to do that. But you got an audit in 60 days. You may want to prepare for that.
Yeah.
So, right. But no, very interesting mindset. I think that has dwindled.
Right.
I think that's dwindled over time. Right. Our industry is one of the first, like we're essential. The food industry was essential. People,
right.
Operationally got to be there. Fine. They're exempt. But it's been kind of a mutational process with candidates' mindsets, Todd, as far as what they're wanting and seeking now. Sure, we get a few that say, hey, I still want to work from home. But I think, knock on wood, I think we've crossed that bridge and we're in a new chapter right now. All systems go. And furthermore, there's more pressing issues right now than COVID.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, again, I just wanted to get a little bit of a frame up so people can kind of get some perspective too of like what has been, because to your point, it was just, topsy-turvy chaos. What are we doing? How are we doing this? Businesses are still trying to function. And, it was definitely a thing. And I know that for you guys, it was definitely in the recruiting side of it, trying to make it work. It had to be, every day was a new experience. Some days it had to be like herding cats, if I was guessing. But I want to dive a little bit deeper into the remote thing a little bit and what that is kind of turned into, because it wasn't a thing before. Now, I mean, I get you can take Friday afternoons, whatever, kind of was very lightly, there, but now it is a thing. And I found some data. I looked at, there's a report from McKinsey that found that 87% of Americans want to continue to work remotely. And so obviously remote work looked like it's here to stay for a little while, at least for the time being, which, by the way, remote work has to be a micromanager's nightmare. I could just only imagine that, right? If you're a supervisor, it's a micromanager, you have to be losing your shit over this remote stuff. But I'm interested from a couple of perspectives. What do employers need to understand and consider this, about hiring folks in this remote world, and then maybe share a little bit of some of the surprises that you found out, when it comes to the desire to work remotely. So I'll give you kind of a two-parter. Deej, you want to throw something at it, or you guys again fist fight for it? Which I'd love to see the fist fight, by the way. I don't want to do it now.
It's tough to reach them in the Eastern time zone from
yeah, that's true. All right.
My job isn't that long. Thanks. Todd, you also shared with us that a McKinsey report regarding 87% of Americans who want to continue to work remotely. And, I reflected on that. I do think that's not reflective of our industry. I think that's an urban thing than an out of industry thing. And as far as working remotely, it has ebbed and flowed as the virus has ebbed and flowed, and as government regulations have ebbed and flowed.
Yeah.
Well, some companies just said, "Hey, work from home," but only for a certain sector, or if you will, class of the workforce, and that's what I call the computer and phone set. If you can do your job, like in recruiting, we can from a computer and phone, then you're the shelter in place people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually got to get the job done, right? If you're out in the field, if you're driving a truck, if you're in a DC, if you're in a packing house, if you're in a grocery store, you've got to go to work.
Yeah.
And so if you actually got to get the work done, you got to get the work done. But it's created kind of this, I don't know what the right word is, if entitlement or preference or whatever the thing is. But if you've had that opportunity to work from home, it's kind of like giving a low price to a retailer. It's like, hey, you were at $10. We have $10. You can't go to 12.
No.
It's like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm working from home. You can't have me come back into the office.
Right.
So a couple of things on that. One, we have clients of ours where they were always in office, and they made it work. And that reflected positively on the workforce. They got to see one another. They weren't sequestered away for months on end. And then others that made it work remotely. But as the virus has changed, more people are going back into the office, and hiring companies are saying, hey, people are more healthy now. Why don't we all work together inside of the office? And from the candidate side, what we're seeing is still holding on to the remote work, where that's fine in some jobs. Sales is one of them. But in others, it is better to come in. And so we're seeing the kind of negotiation back and forth. And so if a hiring manager says, hey, you've got to come into the office, and there's a significant part of the candidate pool for that job that doesn't want to, it's a limiting factor on the total candidate pool and the ability to, fill the position, right? If you have 100 candidates, you want to hire a controller, 30 of them are saying no. Well, now you've reduced, your candidate pool by about a third. And as a hiring company, you gotta live with that and make that decision, right? It's up to you. If you want to mandate this, then you're gonna have to try to find somebody who agrees with that. Conversely, the candidate has a choice. Am I going to find somebody that's working remotely, or a company that will? Talk to a candidate, a CFO recently, and they were very pro working from home. They said, hey, our company just lost somebody because they found another company that's a work from home compliant company. It's an ebb and tide. We'll see how it goes. From our perspective, we try to help both sides, right? We try to get the right candidates to companies and great opportunities to candidates. It's their decision. We just roll with it, alter our searching and our sourcing and our counsel to reflect the times.
Interesting. Has there been any surprises in this? I mean, and you talked about people like, I'm bailing. I guess that'd probably be the biggest surprise, or I don't want this job because of that. Anything else come to mind, Nate? Anything come to mind that, this remote thing is like shocks you? Because I think with some people, and maybe I help along, I would think some people look at this remote thing and go, yeah, you're paying me big money, but I still want to work from home.
I would even take that, Todd, to the executive level roles too. Currently, Dave's working on a CFO position. I have a COO related opportunity, and it's interesting to network and talk to these people that may not be local, right, within that region. Granted, they encompass the skill sets, the accomplishments and the know-how to really lead a company and take it to the next level. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, I'm here. I think what I can do, I could do it probably 2 or 3 days out of the week. Happy to do that. Travel is needed. So that's interesting, right? Even it's not only the sales roles that we're talking about to be remote based, but even the higher level roles, which can be unique at times, because at the end of the day, our clients, right, being in the fresh produce industry, really want that mindset and ideation to take place on site. So many good, and we push for that too. Like, okay, hey, candidate Joe Smith over here. Cool. I get that. We can talk about it, see what my client's feedback is in that capacity. But at the end of the day, a winning formula is to have your people on site. And it was very cool. This past year, we placed a VP of sales, and he knew it required reload. And he said, Nate, throughout my whole career, you've got to be with your people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to he's like, I don't want to be remote. I could ask for that, but I really don't want to, because I know at the end of the day, I can't be as successful, or, for the company to be successful, I have to be there. I've got to meet their people. And it's not only the sales people. I've got to understand who the ops people are, the growers, have my retailers come in for on-site visits, give them tours. There's a lot of value. I mean, again, we are in the people business, right? We're in the people business, relationships, and that's how you really build sustainable. You've got to be in the trenches together. So it's a fine line, and I'm sure I'm going to get some hunters out there with that feedback. I've got a dear friend in the industry. He's a national sales director, sharp guy. I think he manages 5 people throughout the country, and he works from home. He's very good at what he does. He's been able to do it. So there's always exceptions to the rule, and I think it really depends on the type of company, because our industry, traditionally speaking, is the grower shipper community is these multi-generational family companies. So that mindset is everyone gets up early and we're all in this, right? Now what's going on? Dave talked about our client base is diversifying. So let's talk about ag tech. Ag tech is a
whole nother world.
I mean, Todd, CEA environment, right? These controlled greenhouse guys.
Yeah.
Traditionally speaking, they may not be produce people. So we've got some new personalities and different viewpoints with these folks. So we have to navigate the waters and bridge people. But at the end of the day, companies are going to hire folks that are going to mesh with their team, and candidates are going to accept offers for the companies that they think that can win with, right? Have that cultural foundation. So it's fun, man. I mean, we present candidates across the board for different things and see how it sinks.
I love that. Well, you talked about something, culture is such a big part of stuff. And I'm doing my dive and learn a little bit more and put some energy into this. I found some data talked about up to 75% of candidates now will pass on a job if the company has, obviously, poor reputation is always going to kill you. But if their missions or values don't necessarily align with the candidate's beliefs and values, which I thought was an interesting add-on or an interesting part of that entire revelation of stats right there. So how important is it for companies to recognize that it matters to people that are trying to get there, that you have belief, that maybe you're doing something with schools, maybe you're doing something with, the environment, or whatever whatever you might turn yourself into. But talk a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, how important that is to recognize for companies today.
Well, the produce industry, farming and agriculture has always been about reputation. People are always 100%. Checking each other out. And I think as far as evaluating people in general, farmers and growers and people on that side of the business, they don't say much when they're having a meeting. They listen. Yeah. So do everybody else within the business. It's very much a listen business. So people have their eyes and ears open when it comes to reputation within our industries. The candidates' beliefs and values, and if a company is involved with certain charities or has certain things going on or initiatives and things of that nature, Todd, and you may agree with this, I think that's very generational. People my age and older, we've had our whole careers based on, I'm going to go to work and get the work done. True. Today, the messaging that is received is, what is your mission here? What is your value system here? And so on and so forth. And that, it's great to have your missions. It's great to have your beliefs and that carry that throughout the organization. We talked about our family values, right? So that's what we believe in. There are some twists and turns that are happening in this country right now where those beliefs and values do not relate to business. Right. So working with each other, all people working with each other. Now it's about me and my own belief, and I feel this way. So when I come to your company, you're going to have to honor what I think and how I feel, and make it worth my time to be at your organization. So we have more people, I think, generationally at the earlier stages of their careers who are focusing on what are you going to do for me, right?
Right.
Whereas people who have been in their careers a long time, it's like, I got to do this for the company because we got to make money, and I got to be a good employee. I got to show value, and I want my career to advance. So those are some of the recent observations, culturally, that we've seen going on from a broader perspective. I think ag and food is so work intensive.
Right.
That I don't know. Sometimes, hey, you want to have certain values and beliefs and so on and so forth, but we're working so darn hard to make all that happen that maybe just don't have the time to think about it. Who knows?
No, you make a really, you make a really, really good point. And I appreciate what you said about it being generational. That's kind of like, oh, that's kind of, you're right. It's kind of a little aha moment right there to ponder. Because we are seeing more of that now from the workforce about, we've got our stars all have to align for me to be here, which, is tough, which I do find interesting. I'm going to ponder the idea about it being more generational, because I think you've summed up, you've put it in really good perspective, and I appreciate that. But, when you talk about culture, because it is a big deal, and culture is how you may deal in your division with your leadership, and there's a lot of things that culture can be defined as, not necessarily just as massive 3,000 employees, here's our corporate culture, but culture builds itself in a lot of ways through different departments, and they have their camaraderie, et cetera, et cetera. So how important is that to you guys when you look at working with companies, or to understand that about a company, where that culture comes in, and how do you guys address that? Is it part of your conversation?
Absolutely. It's a pivotal part of our conversation, Todd, and it's not easy.
Yeah, I would
right?
think it's got to be a little challenging.
Matchmakers, right? You learn what the company does, what they need, and we go out and find those profiles, right? That's very basic stuff right there, right? Comparing apples. But at the end of the day, who's going to mesh with your people and your team? And we do our best to size people up, but that's really hard to do, right? And that's why we always advocate our clients, like, hey, take your time interviewing these people, spend time with them, get a feel, take them on a tour, go out to lunch, go out to dinner. How do they carry themselves versus in front of your people on a site visit, versus going out to dinner. So we take it very seriously. We have candidate questionnaires that we implement for candidates, because the resume doesn't tell the whole story on people.
Sure.
So one of the questions is, what is your preferred work environment? What does that look like? And some folks say, well, hey, I like to be part of a big team, a lot of layers and resources here. I need that engine to keep, to make myself successful. And then you have other folks that say, you know what? I like to wear multiple hats. I'm not afraid to get in and get my hands dirty.
Right.
Hands on, the whole deal. So it's important for us to learn about these companies, how they operate, how they function, who's going to mesh. And then we do our best to size people up. But again, we really, really advise our clients to spend time with people and that candidate, because every hire is an investment. Don't make a knee-jerk reaction. Some people get wowed by a resume, but again, you have to kind of break it back down. What's the character traits? What is their track record? Who's going to vouch for them, etc. So,
yeah. Culture, it's another buzzword to me, because it's so broad and people can define it differently. There's one of the large companies in the fruit world that I've worked with, and the director of HR a few years ago told me, she goes, and we've worked together a long time, and she said, DJ, I don't expect you to know our culture, right? They have offices throughout the country. Because I don't expect you to, because you don't work there. You're not in the office knowing, how people work and interact. So instead of saying culture, I'd like to define that a little bit better. What is it like to work there? As Nathan was saying, how do the people treat one another? What is the atmosphere like? Are the managers tough to work for? And as a recruiter, these are things that can be sensitive, and some places you can't go. But what's the mindset like of management? Is it a bit old school? Is it contemporary? How do they treat their employees? How do the employees treat each other? Do the employees like working there? Not to glass door the thing, because that can be taken with a grain or a pound of salt. But one of the things that we think is a testament to our organization is tenure. What is the tenure like of the people at the organization? Is it long? Because if it's long, then they'll probably get along and work well together. But we do is to try to understand those things as much as we can. But that relate, how people relate to each other really is established deeply within the interview process as candidates and companies and hiring managers spend time together, learn about one another. And there's another company we've worked with that I think does a great job with identifying if it's a culture fit or not. They of course they use like personality inventories and those online assessments initially. But what they also do, in addition to interviewing and having the person spend time with manager, is they have the person come in for some shadowing, see what it's like here at the organization. I at the earliest, I shared my career path, which has quite a few stepping stones on it. And I thought at the last one before joining Produce Careers, wouldn't it be nice to spend a little time in the office to see what it's really like here, right?
Yeah, right.
That way, the person, the candidate, can check it out. Are people yelling at each other? Are they never talking to each other? You're picking up on all those little various things. Of course, getting back to another part of the show, in office or out of office, you're not going to pick up on those things through a Zoom call.
No,
right? You're going to pick up by being around other people. But I thought that was a terrific way of getting to know people and determining a really good culture fit.
It makes total sense, and I think it's great, and I love the way that you answered the question, because you came from an angle, I believe, that as companies are listening to this, probably haven't thought about, like, how am I presenting myself culture? What does that actually mean? Yeah, we have a company culture, but they probably don't even have it very well defined. But I love the way you attack that question and the process that you go about. I mean, it shows a lot, it's incredibly progressive thinking, forward thinking about coming at it from these multiplicity of angles. To your point, shadow, what's it like? What is the office like? Anybody even talk? I've been into offices where nobody talks all day. I would lose my freaking mind. I already talk to myself enough. I'd be bored by 9:30 with myself, and so you're right. There's people that love that and people that don't. It doesn't work well. So I appreciate how you guys framed that up. It makes a total ton of sense. One of the things go ahead. No, go.
Real quick, bud. So I commend it, because that is the hard part, right? That cultural fit.
Yeah.
And I do commend the organizations out there that are implementing a culture index test.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that work? Well, the culture index test, from my understanding, is that the in-house folks do this test. They compare notes. They kind of get a generality of how they function.
Right.
And they set the benchmark for future applicants and candidates. Okay.
Right.
So there is validity in that. But the thing I would caution with, because I've seen it over the years now, specifically the past 5, is that that's the end all. Like, they have someone fill out this culture index test, like, no, Johnny boy here didn't fit in the box. Are you sure you don't want to take Johnny boy out for a tour and a visit?
Right.
Because things happen.
Yeah.
Tests are like, how accurate are they? I mean, is the candidate trying to work the test to appease the client? You know what I mean? So,
sure.
I think there's some correlation there, that these tests can provide some indicators on people, but at the end of the day, you really need to get and spend that face time together and validate what you saw.
I love that. Yeah, I agree. I think it's great. I like the way you guys summed it up. I mean, I think it's really an interesting perspective that I'm guessing a lot of companies, HR people, people in charge of hiring, whatever it might be, probably haven't thought that through at the level at which you just presented it. I mean, bravo, boys. Well done. I'm going to give you a double star for that answer. It really was. No, because it's not what I thought was coming when I formulated the question. It's like, okay, and you took it to a different place, which quite frankly makes a hell of a lot of sense, which I hate saying that to both of you at the same time, because that's never going to happen twice. Don't bet on that line, kid in Vegas. But one of the things that's fascinating to me in when I look at this economy and what we're doing, is that millions of people are quitting their jobs. They're just like, see you later, right? It doesn't appear if that seems to be slowing down, and I'm not exactly, when I went through this, we got over 11 million jobs available today in this country. It's probably higher than that at this point. So for better or worse, 1 in 4 Americans are considering a job change in 2023, which I found to be another interesting tidbit of info. Don't look at me, Nate, like I'm making this shit up. I do some homework. I can read big words, but I'm so going on the line that you guys just presented. How important is it, for both job seekers and employers to kind of prepare for this, right? Because it's obviously a very active market, which means obviously, people are thinking about leaving, and employers need to be thinking about that. So what do job seekers need to know, in this kind of new environment that's out there, and maybe why they need to go beyond even their resume to try to get hired, because it's an active place for sure.
What do job seekers need to know? It's interesting. I think if you're a job seeker, depending on what it is you want to do, it's, I think, a better time overall to be a job seeker now than it was, 10, 20 years ago. And that holds true mostly for the lower end jobs, because, and I mean, this may be a question later on, people aren't taking those roles.
Right.
If people are going to quit their jobs, that's their deal. I think a lot of these, as I may have mentioned earlier, I think some of these surveys are very urban. I'm not sure they're reflective of our industry. I think in our business, people, like to keep their jobs and stick around and grow their careers when they can. I don't think there's a lot to share in terms of, preparing for the Great Resignation or anything like that. And what's going to really affect that, Todd, is the economy. If the economy is continue to be where it is, propped up or whatever have you, I think we're going to see a lot of status quo. We dealt with a lot of COVID that changed people's lives and minds, some for the better, some for the worse, unfortunately. But if this economy, does take a turn, then I think people's opinions of the Great Resignation is going to change, unless whatever income stream they have while they're not working maintains itself.
Oh yeah, no doubt there. What about, flip the question over? What do employees need, or employers? What's the word I'm trying? What do employers need to be thinking about, with the fact, in the back of their mind is, is everybody looking to leave? Do I need to be more cognizant of that? Do I need to make sure I got better coffee? Do I need to be prepared? Am I, with getting guys like you more, lined up and just kind of in the back pocket? I mean, what would your advice be for them at this point?
I think, number one, people, again, generally speaking, people that are in the fresh produce, food processing, or ag sectors, they want to be in our industry.
Right.
It's, you see some folks that get into this industry without any prior experience, and that's wonderful. But I think, again, people that are in the industry understand the expectations and the demands. So as far as this great exodus of folks moving on, I don't think so. Again, we're a sustainable industry. People have to eat. We're growing domestically. We're importing more and more. There's a ton of opportunities. And as we all know, dealing with perishable goods, you only have X amount of time to get that product from harvest to shelf. So a lot of demands there. And the livelihood is good. You can do very well in the fresh produce industry. Absolutely. So I don't see a Great Resignation. I see people trying to get into our industry. It is an industry. So that's fun. It is highly competitive. I've been telling this to clients for, gosh darn, probably the past 5 years. That is the candidates market, right? The driving the ship, not the employers. They have that leverage. We see it on a weekly basis, right? Candidates that are entertaining multiple opportunities. So it's very important for companies to be cognizant of that, not to be just complacent that there's all this extra talent out there. It really isn't. And furthermore, Todd, you're talking about people's MO, with can I work from home? Guess what? Right. You start to put these pieces of the puzzle together, and for a good match, companies want people that are on board, all in, and going to win. So,
I like that. That should be a t-shirt. Wow. All in, going to win. I love that.
Boy, I mean, we're ranked number 1 right now. I'm feeling it. So basketball wise, not ladies, men's for once. So yeah.
DJ,
Yeah.
I gotta ask you, how many things do you think came to my mind to say right now about the Boilermaker? Just honestly, 3 minimum, maybe 6. What do you think? I'm letting them all go. You know why? I'm turning over a new leaf in 2023. I am.
This is a family show, Todd.
No, it's not.
And I think we should keep it. We talked about family earlier. If my
Turning it.
kids ever see this, oh my goodness, heavens to Betsy.
Look at me bring it in. Look at me bring it in. Right. I'm bringing it in, baby. I'm bringing it in.
You left that pretty open ended.
Oh, wide open.
I mean, that's a softball over the plate.
It was, but I'll let it go.
But to kind of continue this on the for our areas for produce and ag.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned this earlier. I don't think the issue is, are people going to resign because they want to go do something else and all that other stuff? Because, a lot of us are blessed to be working in kind of rural or semi-rural areas where we don't have to be in cities.
Yeah.
I think that's a blessing. I left a city. I left LA to be on the Central Coast because it's maddening, the way people treat each other.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. I think the industry's issue is not reaching out to young people to bring them into the business as much as they can, and to share the word. It doesn't have to be ag majors, it's people who are business majors or any other aspect of academia to share. This is a great, terrific industry.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's so many different things you can do. I've had the opportunity pre-COVID to talk to the local community college and some of its career classes and so forth, and share all the things that is going on in agriculture, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
From ag tech, CEA, R&D, people on the crop chemical side to have more biologicals and so forth. And then post-harvest, what people are doing with ingredients to make better snacks, better foods, more flavors. Go to the food service show, they're throwing in one ingredient with the other to create something unique for the palate. It is a cool time to be in our business.
Yeah, there's no
But
doubt.
who are we telling? Right? We're telling each other. I think the advocates on the association side, wouldn't it be nice? Hey, let's tell somebody outside of our business. We all know it's lovely. That's why we do it.
Yeah, no, you make a really good point.
I think if more people heard the story and got to see it and experience it, they'd be thinking, you know what, this is pretty cool stuff.
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now, a word from our sponsor. At Produce Careers, we are in the people business. Thanks for listening to Todd-versations. As your trusted executive search firm for the fresh produce, food processing, and agribusiness industries, we focus on outcomes. With over 80 years of combined industry expertise, with our global networks, we have the tools and the skills to identify top talent for your organization's strategic hiring needs. Our relationship-driven approach and proven recruitment process deliver the right candidates at the right time. At Produce Careers, we know each hire is an investment. Whether you're looking for the perfect candidate or searching for your next challenge, call or email us today and let us partner with you.
I believe that the emergence of ag technology and what's going on, whether it be drones, whether it be, little tiny fiddle players that go in your sprinkler pipes to make the plants grow faster, whatever the hell they're coming up with these days, it's got another generation of kids getting a little more serious because it's farming by phone and it's becoming techie and it's becoming like a video game in some ways, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I think I think you're right. I think it's an interesting time to be looking outside of, to your point, ag majors and what's going on out there and who's out there, because people got to eat, right? And this industry's not going anywhere. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to thrive if we keep doing the right things and keep doing right by Mother Nature and all the things that we talk about on this broadcast. I think your point's really valid. I want to come back and I want to talk about something now that I find incredibly interesting, which is all these multiple platforms that are out there now to automate this process of hiring, which I find, I don't know, a little baffling in my own brain, but that's just me, you guys. But search tools are in the marketplace, whether it's Monster, LinkedIn, there's HR platforms out there. I think now there's just all kinds of stuff floating around. Not necessarily the way I would go about trying to find somebody, because I don't think you can get a whole lot out of, clicking a button and reading a resume. You can, but you really can't a lot too. But talk to me a little bit about some of the misconceptions maybe you want to clear up about online hiring process, versus what's different about what you all do.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Try.
You know, in our business, we're not as up on some of the tech as other industries
Mhm.
because it's expensive, right? So if you're a small to mid-sized company, you're going to get your resumes emailed through Indeed and may save them or do whatever. So I think company size plays into how much technology can influence their pipelines.
Right.
Now, the big companies, your Doles, your Robinsons, your so on and so forth, they're going to have either an HRIS, human resources platform, an ATS, applicant tracking systems, that's going to be automatically fed the resumes that they get. And depending on how they're set up, you know, they could be sourced, you know, filtered by keywords and so forth. So the first glance of these resumes is probably going to somebody in internal talent acquisition or human resources. And they're going to be looking for very specific things, you know, to get the resumes that they think is the right one to their hiring managers. So what, you know, it's tough to say misconceptions because I think that some people may know that this is out there. Hey, if I send my resume in through a job board, yeah,
Right.
hopefully they see it. Hopefully they like it. Chances are they won't hear back. And that's something we do. We utilize our website to share our searches. And when somebody, you know, puts us a resume, you know, we get back to them. If it's a simple response, it's fairly generic, or if it's, hey, thanks for having your interest in this, but that I think is something missing from the online process, and don't expect it to be there if you're conducting your job search through the websites.
Yeah, I would agree. Nate, anything to chime in?
Not really, Todd. I mean, the online world, you know, these job boards, consolidated job boards, or even niche job boards. I mean, that applicant is hoping that someone actually receives it, reviews it,
Right.
and that should be evaluated in the right way.
Yeah.
And maybe it is. Hopefully for them it is. But if it isn't, that's again, produce careers. You see it on our site, people, relationship. And that's when you really get in the trenches with folks to learn more. Resumes don't tell the whole story on people. They don't.
No.
They don't. So
100% agree.
that's the value and obligation that we have as a firm, is to really learn more about folks and challenge our hiring authorities at times. Right? I'm never, we at Produce Careers are not going to tell our client who to hire. I may be biased. I like Todd Linsky. You should hire him. Hire him as your next president. But at the end of the day, the clients have to do their vetting process and match. And we're here to like synergize that process and provide more information for them. Number one, to even have a conversation with these people and see how it progresses. So, hey, it's good. Technology is good.
Sure.
But for our industry, again, our clients need more information, and that's what we do. You know, I don't think that can be the same process as a whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. Well, you made a really great point. And when you guys said, you talked about, you're hoping somebody sees it, right? And to the point, those algorithms are saying, what are the keywords? You know, is there 6 keywords they're looking for in a 2-page resume that kicks them up to somebody to actually see? Because you're right, they go in, it's just a part of this spin process. And so if you think somebody's at Indeed is sitting there going, oh, look, I got 937,000 resumes today, I'm going to go through each one of these. That ain't happening, kids. So you are lost in the system a little bit. And while I get what they're about, and to your point, technology is moving on light speed ahead on all kinds of subjects, hiring is a little bit of a different animal. And so, you know, when I look at what you all do, from my perspective, being out in this trade for a few weeks now, a few long weeks, I don't see it myself. I don't see this digital process of hiring, because to your point, I want to know who people are. I want to know what they think about. I want to talk about, you know, do you like the Dodgers? What do you like baseball? What do? Do you want to go to dinner? Let's know. You got to get to that point, because everything that we've talked about, whether it's talking about family values, or it's talking about working from home, or cultural issues and all that stuff, you're just not going to extract that from, 2.5 pages of paper. And I think it's just really important that we remember that as job seekers and those that are out to hire, is that, investing in the right people to help you succeed and find those proper voices and find those warm bodies that have personality and character and all that stuff is something you should invest in for the long game. Because to your point, Deej, you brought up the word tenure. Who doesn't want to hire people that stay around for 20 years, that buy in, that are all in, that your family are growing up together, and you're kicking the ball down the field every day with that common goal. And I think it's incredibly important that people that are listening to this and people are contemplating a job move or job hiring, whatever the case may be, recognize that you are actually hiring a living, breathing human being person. And you should know who the hell that is a little bit more than just what 2.5 pieces of paper said, in my opinion.
And Todd, there's another set of obstacles in addition to technology, because we implement technology to streamline processes and make things more efficient so that we don't have to do the work, right? Thumbing through all these resumes or putting them all together in a reviewable place. That's what ATSs do,
Right.
They slot them right into hey, you go back to the controller job. Hey, I got a bunch of controller apps. Now I can look at these people by title, or I've got them all there. I have them in one spot. Now I can go through them. Issues that prevent, and it's been a slow burn, if you will, or a slow development, is governmental rules and regulations on what you can and can't ask people.
Right.
You don't want to run afoul of discrimination.
Nope.
Some cities, some states are saying you can't ask if people have a criminal background. There's certain topics that are off the table. Yeah. You can't say one thing. I'm not going to, go down the rabbit hole on this. But I think if you're a hiring manager, there's, and especially depending on the state you ask, if it's a compensation question, you can't ask about marriage or any of these things. So getting to know someone is becoming harder and harder because you can't ask these questions, right? Even if they're meant harmlessly, like, oh, how's your family, blah, 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 or whatever the case may be. You have to trust that the person's okay having a conversation about who they are as a person. And we're not talking about going onto the deep end. What's your religious beliefs or political? No,
right.
Basic questions on humanity.
Well, they're common sense questions. They're get to know you questions. They're the exact same questions you would ask somebody if you're having a beer with them, getting to know whatever the case, having coffee. Yeah, right. But which is why I go back to what I said earlier. It's why it's so important that what you guys do at Produce Careers is why I wanted you guys on, because it's such an important topic in 2023. But I'm really trying to stress the fact to the people on the other end of our conversation, you're not in this alone. Embrace the two of you and what you're doing and why you're doing it, because ultimately it's going to better serve your customers, your employees, your business better by being able to go out and do the lift that you do, to where you're out talking to people. You're not pulling this shit out of the air like you're doing off these computer platforms going, hey, this one looks good. Hey, their name is this, I love this name. Let's hire them. Right. And I think it's more than that. I think it's just really important as we get into 2023, as we talked about the economy, what's going on with jobs, that people recognize the value that you guys put out there. And I just think what you guys do is incredibly important, and probably more so now than ever before, because of the points that you've made, DJ, about the culture, the environment. What is this? Do I align, right? All these other things that we talked about. I think it's really impactful.
And a lot of these rules and regulations, just so if you're a hiring manager out there watching this or listening to it, they affect your firm, your third parties as well. And that's one thing that I think we do a pretty admirable job of, is keeping up to date as much as we can. Being here in California, we're kept quite busy on the things that, the basics in terms of, the initial stages of the job search. Of course, through the interview process, and some of those things we'll be able to help with, some not. And on the hiring side, you want to make sure that you've got your ducks in a row, because ultimately when it comes to that level, there's compliances that employers are going to be making. But when it comes to making the introduction and so forth, we're doing our best to understand all these different requirements that now it's a part of the job search. Every bit as much as COVID affected from working from home. We have regulations.
100%.
What hiring managers can do.
Again, there are certain things we can't ask, but given this is our profession and we know how to navigate those waters with people, it's open-ended questions, and that's what we're trying to extrapolate, share with our clients. As far as, you can't ask Joe Smith what he currently makes, but hey, Joe, if you're going to move you and your family across the country, what's it going to take, bud? That's a
Yeah.
real, then they start to open up, right? There is a book to be opened and to be read.
Sure.
So you just have to be creative, and that's the value that we offer here at Produce Careers for our client. Because, you know, HR folks in house aren't going to ask those questions, or maybe they don't know how to. So yeah, it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky. Yeah, it can be.
But the key thing that you both said, it's about the value you provide, right? To be able to get that FaceTime and go through, because you get 15 candidates. You've talked to all 15. You have, you know, a basis of understanding of who they are, how they tick a little bit, what they feel, what they are, you know, and that's incredibly important. It's like, to the point of, here's 15 resumes I pulled off of one of these sites. Good luck, right? I don't know. I just think what you guys do is an important lift. So
sure. And the reality too, Todd, I mean, this industry is pretty small, right? I mean, day
For
after
sure.
it starts to shrink, and we know there's things that happen behind the curtain. People talk, they know each other. But again,
it's a sewing circle.
It is. But again, that as to how those companies want to operate and vet things, that's their deal, and I can't blame them. But at the end, again, we're going to do what we do. We're representing both sides of the fence, the candidate and the client.
Right on. Yeah, I love it. So what's next for you guys? What's hot and heavy in 23? What do you think? Good and exciting? I mean, no. Sac State, maybe Sac State gets out of the first round of the football playoffs in 2023. maybe Purdue goes to a bowl game. Yeah, maybe Purdue goes to a bowl game for football.
No. What do you mean, maybe? What are you talking about?
Well, I was trying to be optimistic by saying maybe. I could have just said not.
You know, go easy on us, Todd. I'm going to sound like an IU fan right now. We're a basketball program.
I don't even get started on IU guys. Believe me. The IU guys out there, yeah, you know exactly what I'm saying to you.
They don't talk between August and November, man. Then they start.
Yeah, well, they get excited about the sweatpants. That's what they get excited about.
The banner in the 70s and 80s. You know what? I like Joe Montana as well. I'm proud of the Niners Super Bowls in the 80s, but do I cling on to that saying we're still relevant and the best? No. You
know what the nice thing is? It gives them something to talk about when they go to the high school football games on Friday. It's not like keeping going back in time, baby. Well, this has been fun, boys. I appreciate you coming on here. This was a fun conversation because we covered a lot. We were all over the board talking about a whole bunch of things, but I think as we brought it together and tied it up, we really showed the relevance of why what you guys do is important and why people need to be leaning in to the services you provide, and the fact that hiring is not easy and it's a process, and it becomes something that I think that people need to invest a little bit more energy into and money into to pull the trigger and find the right people. So I appreciate you both for being here and hanging out with me today.
Well, yeah, if you want, Todd, I can circle back if you got a minute to some of the things for 2023 and and so forth. From the candidate side, I have several conversations about people with their search. Hey, I'm looking for this. Hey, I'm looking for that. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that and touched on it a little bit within a certain context. But if people are really interested in a nuts and bolts kind of recommendation, at least my thoughts on a job search, I put together a little website. It's the most unattractive website on the internet, but it's called jobsearchstart.com. It's just my thoughts on how people should go about conducting their job search. It's very basic stuff, but sometimes we forget about those. And I was talking to somebody, a couple of people recently, some at a very high level. And I said, with your search, you got to think about it like you're a salesperson, like in business development. You've got to go out and be more proactive, because you mentioned the computers and so forth, submitting your resume through a job board or LinkedIn or what have you.
Right.
People need to become, especially as they head into the future, more cognizant of not only the roadblocks of automated systems, but it's okay to be proactive in your job search, to use some of those technologies for yourself. There's free CRMs like HubSpot or an ATS like LOXO that anybody can use to track their work, to identify the companies they're interested in, the hiring managers, for the positions in which they'd want to apply. That can include human resources, right? You can pull up their contact information. There's tips and tricks for that, or just reaching out through LinkedIn and track your work. Hey, I contacted ABC company. Hey, I contacted 123 company. It's
Right.
been a while. Maybe I should circle back. Don't be afraid to be proactive in your search, because that's what's ultimately going to probably push your search forward. You know, talking to your friends, people in your network, talking to us. We're happy to help. And then on the client side for us, you know, since COVID, what we've done is diversify our service offering.
Right.
You know, we've had two primary areas, right? There's the contingent search, a placement fee, and then there's the executive search model, which Nathan and I have been, and other team members have been really busy with this year. But there's other sourcing services in terms of identifying candidates that we've been able to parse out the recruiting process for those who are interested in the services, right? I like to say, let the market dictate what the service offering is. Some people want a fully transparent search service. We offer that. And some people only want a certain part of the pipeline to be worked on, and then they'll handle the rest. We deliver that. We've developed that expertise largely in candidate sourcing through the leaders on the tech side who are very advanced. The tools that are out there, we implement them to identify and bring good talent to the table.
I love it.
So those are some of the things I want to share with the business out there. And, you know, I ran into a few talent acquisition team members and leaders for some of the large organizations, and we understand that their challenge isn't necessarily the full cycle, which we're, of course, experts at, but simply getting the research done and having that initial contact. And we offer that service as well. So a lot of cool things for 2023, hopefully.
I love it.
Yeah.
Produce Careers, kids, get on board, get online, go check them out, email, they'll answer your questions, they'll talk to you. You guys have been a plethora of advice to a lot of people today. And I really think that you're going to make people sit back a little bit and go, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that hard. Right. Or I need to think about that a little bit more. And how do I feel? You know, all these things. I mean, I think you guys just an plethora of information for folks today. And I really appreciate it. I mean, you guys went above and beyond sharing like you did. And I think, you know, I hope people reach out, but I also hope that people take that moment of pause and say, hey, I got to get aligned with the right folks to get me down the field. And that's incredibly important. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Todd. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely a pleasure. Much love to everybody.
Yeah.
Love you too, man.
It's always fun to do this next session on the golf course. Okay. Yeah,
I'm down. I'm ready. You just let me know. Yeah. You know, there's one thing you don't have to ask me twice. Do you want to play golf? So that's not a problem.
You know, Todd, that's one thing I like to tell people, you know, because when we contact them, you know, it can appear to be self-serving. Hey, it's business, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we want your search. Do you want to be a candidate? But another thing that we do is say, you know what, that's all well and good. But if you ever have any questions, if it's for yourself, your own search, if you're going to hire somebody, you know, maybe you're ready or not to hire a recruiter, but you're just kicking around some ideas, contact us. This is what we do.
Yeah.
We have a lot of experience. If we can offer advice and add a nugget here or two, wonderful. If we can't, we won't. But give Nathan a call or give I a call. We're happy just to talk shop and be a resource to the industry.
I love that. It's a great offer, everybody. There you go. Open invitation. Just call. They love getting phone calls between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning. Dial away, kids.
Especially on the weekends.
Especially on the weekend. I was just getting ready to say that. We'll put their numbers on the screen in a minute.
Pacific time.
No shit. Thanks, boy. Thanks, boys, for being here. Much love to you guys. Everybody, Produce Careers, check them out. What a great conversation we had today. A lot of nuggets to take away from, a lot of things to think about if you're getting in that position that you want to make a change, you're an employer, you know, somebody that's looking to hire, whatever the case may be. Really great nuggets we went through. Thanks again, boys, for being here. Remember, everybody, I say this all the time, go out and inspire somebody, make a difference in their lives today by doing something to uplift their spirit. It's not hard to do. A simple hello goes miles in this world, and we need a hell of a lot more of them if we're going to get through the days that we have coming and what we got going on. So remember that. Go inspire people, support. Check us out on social media, TLC Todd-versations. We're there because that's where they tell we are. And well, because the Kardashians are there, and I like hanging with the Kardashians. Kim and I are tight. We're buddies. Anyways, thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you soon. Take care. Much love.